I want to welcome you to the I want to welcome you to the second launch of the Caregiver edition of the Peregrine Literary Journal. And this is the publishing arm of the Amherst Writers and Artists. And I'm Carla Hansen. I'm your host today. I'm a former board member and part of the caregiving committee and a facilitator for our ongoing workshops for caregivers and some other workshops as well. When we began the Caregiver Project almost 2 years ago, we have an echo. When we started about 2 years ago, we knew that we wanted to put together an anthology. Wow. Do we need to get, if you're not muted, would you please mute? Okay, thank you. So when we started, we knew that we would want to have an anthology of the writing, and we were really excited when the AWA Peregrine decided to devote the 37th edition to our literary journal, to the caregiving writing. And as a facilitator of the caregiving workshops, I realized that there's just an army of mostly silent and sadly mostly unseen caregivers on this continent, and I'm sure elsewhere as well, and a wide range of people caring for loved ones, often at great sacrifice. And in fact, the funeral I attended yesterday was a cousin whose daughter took care of her just selflessly for an entire year. And so you all know what that's like. I've been moved to hear how our workshops have helped writers and caregivers feel less isolated and a teeny bit more clear about their roles as helpers to loved ones in their most vulnerable states. You'll soon hear writing that's tender, sad, artful, beautifully crafted, and moving. I feel really privileged to be here to celebrate the work and the writing of caregivers in this way. And before we start reading, I want to say a few thank yous. AWA is an astonishing organization. And as you all know, that Pat Schneider started it with a profound vision. And our mission is to support the voices of established and emerging writers and to free silenced and marginalized voices, and to promote respect for the artists and all writers through the use of the AWA method. AWA has no formal grants or funding, and that means it survives and thrives on the work of many, many volunteers devoted to carrying on Pat's work. And the vast majority of the work for the Peregrine Journal, as well as the caregivers, is done by volunteers. Done lovingly, I'd say. Before we get to the readings, there are a number of people who deserve a great deal of thanks. So the Caregiver Project and the Power of Story Committee, who shared the vision for the Caregivers Workshop and invented them from ground up. So our leader, our fearless leader, Sue Reynolds, who just stepped down as the chair of the AWA after 4 years, I think, and it was her idea. And she got other people excited about it, and we launched the Power of the Story and the Caregiver Project. Also in that charter group are Dr. Meadow Jones, Mary Simmerling, Susan Wingert, who's a reader today, Gail Cunningham, Sarah Kerr, Beth Lehman, Francine Diodati, Marie Lozier, also a reader today, and Dr. Deborah Baer, and all the support breakout rooms facilitators and the participating writers whose enthusiasm for the project let us know that we're on the right track. In the publishing arm, there are a number of standouts, and I want to thank Jan Haig, who pilots this publishing into the organization with a great deal of energy and knowledge and history. Jan has been caring for her mother, who's 90 plus years old, who's now in hospice, and that's why Jan can't be here with us today. Otherwise, she would be hosting this. Also, we want to thank the prose editors, Janet Summers and Ellen Summers, and they're cousins of Pat Schneider's, and so they've been devoted to this work in Pat's absence. And once again, Jan Haig, who led us on this project, and she was also the poetry editor. Also, a huge thank goes out to Lane Goddard for overseeing the layout, and especially to Elizabeth Perlman, who not only laid out the 200 pages of this journal, but did so from her home in Asheville, North Carolina, in the middle of the hurricane. And Elizabeth's last text to Sue Reynolds before she lost power was, "OMG, I just finished putting the finished touches on Peregrine. How am I going to get it to you without power or internet?" And she was totally dedicated. And speaking of dedication, our managing director, Katie Frank, who's here running the show, she's the embodiment of dedication and positive energy, intelligence, capacity. She's always saving our behind. And she does more than we can imagine. So thank you, Katie, for doing this tech and keeping all the plates spinning. And finally, thank you to the 75 writers who offered their work for this edition and the 23 writers who are reading this afternoon, I guess. So we're not sure where we are. So with that, we're going to start with our first reader, which is Louise Bierig. And Louise grew up on Lake Erie and is a graduate at the University of Iowa's Undergraduate Writers Workshop. She leads the Lansdowne Writers Workshop using the AWA method. Her writing has appeared in the Best Short Stories of Philadelphia, Schuylkill Valley Journal, Philadelphia Stories, Peregrine, and the Philadelphia Inquirer. Louise, will you read to us?
Sure. My poem is titled Making Art. My therapist doesn't know he's an artist. Says he has no talent for music and he can't write well. He thinks the visual art I create or the images I capture on camera are very creative. So when I tell him about the art we made together one night in my dream, he seems surprised we are making art together. But isn't that what we do when it's really good between us? We make art. The music is in the way he pulls my emotions forth. The
Okay,
tears,
they are starting
both our eyes.
alphabetically, so I've got quite a bit of wait.
The poetry is in his texts that stop my pain, even as he is standing up to me and challenging me. The visual image is the light spilling over his shoulder of us together in this room and other times, other rooms over the years. This is art, man. This is collaboration. Don't you see? This is art. You're an artist.
Oh, thank you, Louise. That's beautiful. But isn't that what we do in the collaboration? This is art, man. Thank you, Louise. Would everyone check their mics to make sure that you're muted? And I'm sorry I didn't tell you that we're going in alphabetical order. Perhaps you have that list that I sent you. Oh, thank you. I just saw some comments in the chat. If you want to give a positive remark, as AWA folks do, please do that. Okay. All right. Thank you, Louise. Next up is Marianne Carrasco.
Morning coup. My father spreads seed out across the green backyard, shaded by an umbrella of a tree. Each morning and evening, gray doves appear, while he watches from inside as he rests in the plush recliner, his view framed by the large window, while beaks endlessly peck, seeking nourishment. Later, he reclines in bed. Wires and tubes adorn his arms, snaking into nose and mouth. A cacophony of beeps echoes rhythmically, overwhelming all who enter. He motions with all his strength, raising a thin arm, and with a flicking of wrist, he beckons his wife to his bedside. In great anticipation of his wisdom, she bends over the rail, lowers her head close to his lips, listens intently to his mumbled words. Straightening when his speaking ceases, she turns her back to the bed, a frown of disappointment as she relays his message. Did you remember to put out the seed? Only 20 miles, yet 19 years away, on this beautiful, breezy spring morning, I hear the morning coo of a dove, sending me back for a fleeting moment to my father who scattered seed daily, making certain until the end that his visitors were fed. Thank you.
Marianne, I'm so sorry I failed to introduce you. So Marianne resides in Sacramento, California. Her publications include Pure Slush's Lifespan, Loss and Retirement, Soul of the Narrator, and The Keep Things. And that was beautiful. I love the listen intently. The speaker listens intently, turns away disappointed with the birds. But 20 miles and 19 years later, that memory is so powerful. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary Ann. Suzanne Dorge is a poet and an AWA creative writing facilitator. Her debut book of poetry, Footfalls, Poems of the Camino, published in 2022, chronicles insights from walking the Camino de Santiago in Spain. Suzanne, will you read to us, please?
Pleased to be here. I live in Canada, but I'm originally from Southern Illinois. And this poem is in the voice of Dorothy, a woman I met when I was at the Veterans Hospital when my dad was dying. The Gospel according to Dorothy. I meet lots of fine people in this Veterans Hospital, like me meeting you here today, looking after your daddy and all. I figure we're all traveling in the same boat. Who do you think's paddling this boat anyway? My daughter says I'm crazy. Driving up here every weekend, looking after my husband and all for 8 years. Insists he's just holding on because of me, laying there breathing through a tube and all. But I know he knows I'm with him. He squeezes my hand. I take good care of my Jimmy. I give him a shaving every Saturday. I sit right there singing and telling him stories. Ain't he a handsome man? I'm all he's got. Your daddy's lucky. He's got all you looking after him. How do I keep going? Every day I think of one good thing that's happened. I write it on a piece of paper and I stick it in a jar. Today I'm going to write how I met you. I figure every day's got something worth being thankful for, don't you? My Jimmy's hurting. I feel him drifting away. The staff here knows it too, but they fear letting him know. I suppose he's not about to let go unless I let him. I've been thinking. I'm going to sit right there, read my Bible, pray for a while, and then I'm going to tell him, I love you, baby, but you got to let go. I don't want you suffering no more. You got to go to a better place. You think I should do that? I don't know if I can. I believe when people die, you got to open the window and let their spirit out. I'm going to do that. Here, you want a cup of coffee? I make real good coffee. And how about some apple fritters? They're real good too. What are you going to do to help your daddy's spirit fly? At this hospital, when somebody dies, they lay a flag across their casket and play taps when the family follows their loved one out. If it's okay with you, I'll circle around the back and be there praying when you all walk your daddy out. You know, people come into your path for a reason, and you best look them right in the eye. After all, you never know who's going to give you your last drink of water. I don't do email or nothing like that, but if you give me your address, I'll send you a card, and you can send me one back. Would you like to do that?
Well, thank you, Suzanne. This is beautiful. I love the lines. He squeezed my hand. I make real good coffee. And who will give you your last drink of water? It's beautiful. And people are entering what they love too in the chat. Is Laura Garfinkel here?
Mhm.
Is she?
Yes.
Oh, great, thanks. So Laura is enjoying the self-care of being a poet after years of caring for others as a mother and a social worker. She has been published in Feral, a journal of poetry and art, Moss Piglet, Pure Slush, and the Thule Review. Laura, will you read to us?
Sure. You can look over my shoulder here. Goddess of Health. 40 years now, you've had the head of Hygeia on your shelf. White bust mounted on wood platform. Disembodied deity. Witness to doctors who swore oaths for patient care. If she could speak, a gentle reminder, do no harm. But years of a life do harm. Ravages of estrogen leaving the body, weakened soft tissue, pelvic floor and vaginal walls, the house crumbling, tumbling down. Remove the womb that held and delivered life. What use do you have for it now? Hysterectomy from the Greek hystera, for uterus. Calm yourself. Don't focus on what you've lost, the body you had, the ability to create life, to deliver. You have built your home, cared for others. You have daughters who someday may have daughters of their own. Still, you are jealous for Hygeia when you drive to your doctor's office. See their stone woman standing in a fountain, bucket catching recirculated water. You imagine Hygeia with flowing skirt, posture straight and tall, slim ankles, muscled calves, stomach flat, arms slender yet strong.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Years of life do harm and remove the womb. That's beautiful. Thank you, Laura. Fran Gary helped support her mother through dementia and discovered that time in their relationship to be unexpectedly rich and deep. Fran and her husband live and work in Franklin, Tennessee, where she tends to their garden and old dog. Fran, will you read to us?
Yes. How lovely they remain. How lovely my mother remains at age 93. How lovely my dog remains at age 16. Together, they help me understand how to care for them both. Mom, how old is she? Me, almost 16, Mom. Mom, she is doing beautifully. Me, she's blind in one eye and can't hear a thing. Mom laughs with her one good eye and hearing aids in. Me, she can't hear me when I come in from work, Mom, but after a while she will smell me that I'm home and come looking for me with her nose to the floor. Mom, how old is she now? Me, coming around to 16 years old. Mom, she needs close attention. Me, oh yes, I'm afraid I spoil her. Mom, well, they train us pretty good. Me, oh yes, I'm completely trained. She stands in front of her dog bed and barks once or twice. That means, where are you? Come be with me while I settle in, which of course I do. Mom, how old is she? Pretty near 16 years old. We walk every morning, at least a half a mile, more on the weekends. Mom, that's why she's doing so well. That's good for you too. Me, on the weekends we walk in the woods behind our house. I let her stop and sniff as much as she likes. Mom, dogs have their own lives in the woods. How old is she now? Me, she'll be 16 in a few months. Mom, you've taken care of her beautifully.
Oh, that's a beautiful piece. I just love, I'm completely trained, says the human, and come be with me while I settle. What beautiful communication among these three characters, daughter, mother, dog. Thank you, Fran. Carla. Carla T. Griswold's work appears in the San Pedro River Review and Prairie Schooner, among others. She holds an MFA from Pacific University. She writes from an island in the Salish Sea where she is a caregiver to her spouses and cycles to find the best views of Mount Rainier. Carla, would you read to us, please?
Yes, thank you. I'm grateful to Peregrine for this beautiful issue and also to all of you for your generosity in reading. I do have a small update in that I'm no longer a caregiver. My husband passed a few weeks ago. So I dedicate this reading to him. It's called Crossing Agate Passage Solo. At low tide, the beach is stripped of its disguise, exposing an alley of abandoned oyster bags still attached to a buoy. What once was a sanctuary of oysters is now a graveyard of shells. No recovery here for what is lost. The last time I paddled, you were in the kayak's bow, marveling at moon jellies and the loud barks of seals. I want to tell you how it felt to kayak past the forest on the bluff today. Tell you how wonderful it was to be floating again, weightless in the wake of passing boats. I had to witness a flutter of butterflies leaving the forest's meadows and see two families of otters diving to remember this is our song. This current, this music keeps me company as you decline. I've lived alone before, but never with this kind of grief, this flesh scraped from its shell. The salt air has changed from crisp and dry to rank. Rocks turn under my feet as I as I haul the kayak to sand. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. That's beautiful. This is our song, Flesh Scraped. Just the images of the otters and the wildlife are just so beautiful. And again, the listeners are commenting in the chat. Thank you, Carla. Brenda Johnson is a writer, blogger, and storyteller whose writing reflects her experiences growing up in 1970s Chicagoland. She's an AWA affiliate in the Indianapolis area. She coordinated the care of her younger sister until her death in December 2023 and is working on a memoir. Brenda, will you read to us?
Yes. It is better to know. As the time draws near, the final gasp of air, the last goodbye, will her eyes be closed tight, looking only at the bright white light? Will her eyes be open for a glimpse of our final goodbye? The good and bad, pity, sorrow, anger, sadness. How will I feel later? Oh, I apologize for making this all about me. Has it always been about me? The oldest sister of the trio, the surviving member of the original household. Should I feel guilty? I apologize for making this about me.
Oh, that's so beautiful. The oldest survivor of the trio, the oldest sister of the trio. Will her eyes be open? That's just beautiful, Brenda. Thank you. Janet Johnson lives in the panhandle of Texas with her terrier Ophi and her cat Darling Puss. An affiliate of Amherst Writers and Artists, she leads Wild Ass Writers groups and is currently writing a coming of age memoir. Janet, will you read to us?
Oh, Janet.
This is called Sweet Word Medicine. I'm in the hall with a clipboard counting patients, noting moods and behaviors. She's pacing by the emergency exit in blue slipper socks and gown. On her skull, an inch of gray hair and a scar where they challenged the tumor. We are protecting her from herself, keeping her in her body till it gives out. She comes to me, squints into my eyes, but her words evade her like bits of eggshell evading the edge of a spoon. Saran, Saran, she says. It's what comes out most often. I look into her gray eyes, reach to understand and fail. Disgusted by defeat, she walks back to her room where ribbed blue bedspreads cover thin sheets. When the snack cart comes, I go to her. Beverly, we have ice cream. Beautiful, she shouts, and we both laugh as she has said exactly what she means.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for that. Like bits of eggshell evading a spoon. So beautiful. Thank you, Janet. Marie Lausier is a retired community health administrator. She was published in Another Dysfunctional Cancer Poem in 2018, and her cancer memoir, Do You Know Why You Are Here?, was published in 2022. Marie is an AWA facilitator and has been involved in the Caregiver Project. Marie, will you read to us?
Yes, thanks. And I'm reading this in memory of my friend who passed away in April. Walking with my friend. We've been walking together for decades, forever, it seems. When we both had jobs to go to, we would walk her dog with the lead-lit collar before daybreak and watch the dawn slowly bring our day to life. Once we had both retired, we would walk her dog in the afternoon, often late afternoon, watching dusk bring closure to the day. As we walk, we talk about everything and nothing. Sometimes we don't talk at all. Somehow the silence feels reassuring. It's the way old friends walk together. One of her friends came on a Costco adventure with us recently. She said we were like an old married couple, the way we talked to each other, the way we finished each other's sentences, recalled and laughed at the old memories, teased each other with genuine affection. These days, we walk when we can, when she's well enough. She has metastatic cancer. She will die before I will. We both know it. Her life has been longer than any of her doctors expected, and it will be shorter than any of her friends want for her. Our Buddhist mentor reminds us that this life is temporary, that we're visitors only. We both find it reassuring that her spirit will always live, and the fact that her visit will be shorter than mine, will end sooner than mine, really does not matter. Sometimes we talk about her illness and her plans, her concerns for her older, fragile husband, her fears about how hard the end might be. But just as often we talk about things of very little consequence, Prince Harry's latest gaffes, her dog's incontinence, what she's making for dinner, the price of gas, the lack of parking in downtown Toronto. We don't need to talk about the hard stuff. We carry on as we always have with each other, walking and savoring the friendship, the outdoors, the dawn of another day, and the moments together. It will always be like this for us. It is the ordinariness of the moments, even as her needs change and the extraordinary becomes ordinary. These are the moments that matter most. It's the ordinariness of the moments that make them the most intimate. These days when she's not well enough, I often walk alone or with her dog. I still feel her beside me. That reassures me that her spirit will always be walking with me long after she and her dog are gone.
Thank you, Marie. I love the way old friends walk together and the contrast of Prince Henry's gaffes and the old dog's incontinence. Thank you, Marie. Sherry Levine is a poet living in Portland, Oregon. She's had 3 collections of poetry published and has written an illustrated poetry book, I Remember Not Sleeping, that will be released in December 2024, so this month. She's an AWA facilitator and a longtime participant with PDX Writers in Portland. Sherry, will you read to us, please?
Thank you. So it's Sherry Levine.
Sherry Levine.
It's okay. This is called The Topography of Grief. I buried her 1,000 times. The burial when she didn't recognize me for the first time. The burial when hospice rushed into the room with a bed and respirator. The burial when the police called after finding her roaming around the city. When the social worker blamed me for not caring for her. The burial when my estranged sister showed up with her son. The burial when I wished the hospice nurse would give her meds to relieve the suffering. The burial when I couldn't tell her about her diagnosis. The burial when I realized she would die from this disease. I stand on a burial mound of 1,000 goodbyes. 1,000 goodbyes I barely had time to say. A labyrinth winding through a burial ground of confusing, ugly goodbyes. The 5 boroughs of New York, Manhattan, Queens, Bronx, the Brooklyn, Staten Island, she quizzed me 1,000 times. Sitting Shiva on the Custer Park Hill, I remember the apple and honey we shared. The shofar wails, Tekiah, Shevarim, Truah, Tekiah, Gedolah. She was born and lived, wandering in circles, relived burials again and again. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sherry. That line, I stand on a burial ground of 1,000 goodbyes. Oh my. So powerful. Thank you. Our next reader is Cheryl McLean, writes fiction and creative nonfiction and is an AWA facilitator. She has won the Skugog Literary Arts Short Story Contest and was shortlisted for the Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story Contest. She and her 3 rescue dogs own Casa Mismac, a writer's retreat in Costa Rica. Cheryl, will you read to us, please?
Well, settling in with the after, abridged version. How did we think it was going to go? That nothing would change besides Anne not being in the house anymore? That Dad would clear his throat and say, so now what? As though his wife of 40 years hasn't just died. Do we pack him up, usher him into a little apartment where they feed him 2 meals a day, where he'll make a group of new friends who never knew her? He'd be better off in a home, right? We, his kids, can run his life. We'll micromanage him, push him around. The more stubborn man alive would just be happy that we care. What's better for someone with a rusting memory who does well with routine, their routines, than to pluck him out of his house where all of these routines are based and throw him into a strange new place where the windows open only 3 inches for a hint of fresh air? No balcony, no bird feeders, no chipmunks to feed from his outstretched hand. We'd seen a unit with a sprawling view of the parking lot, brown and gray, trimmed out with melting snowbanks pitted with sand. He shrugged and said, why not? I guess if this is what it is, it's as good a place as any. His clear blue eyes, now a dull milky gray, were fixed on the faux hardwood floor. So this is how it will be. Dad will live alone in the home that was theirs. He will fail to finish the daily crossword. It was Anne who filled in the words. He'll let food go bad in the fridge and sniff it, shrug, and add it to his daily soup for lunch. He'll blow out the driveway when it snows and will pray he doesn't go up on the roof again. He will sweep the floors and clean the toilet until he doesn't, and maybe then he'll allow someone in to do the jobs that she had done. He will live alone until crocuses and snowdrops poke out of frozen earth, until he no longer expects to see her in every room he enters. Maybe then he'll feel the weather is right to allow someone else to prepare his meals, clean his room. Until spring then.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl. So many beautiful lines. Until crocuses and snowdrops poke out. And many more in the chat. Our next reader is Johar Munzer, is a doctor who paints and writes. She was born in Staten Island, and her parents, immigrants from India, homeschooled her, nurturing her in science and art. She likes flower gardens, bookshops, and personality quizzes. Johar, will you read to us, please?
Thank you. 1.5. He's 1.5 and he walks around like he owns the place. Look, he says, pointing at everything and nothing. My favorite diversion tactic now turned on me. I search for his sparkling eyes, but he started off somewhere, the bunny. A shock of jet black behind the counter. He's pulling at the phone by its charging cord. I swoop to catch it moments before it's off the ledge. No, I say for the 18th time this morning. Little wonder that it's all he says in response. Not a minute to spare and he's in the cabinets. I could get a lot for those. Another one, he cracked the first. Lunch was at 1 because the rice took longer to cook than I had planned. I'm on a brown rice kick. My sister said I should try it because your food affects your mood. She's childless, does yoga, and lives in a villa in West Palm. The rice isn't working, but then it's been only 1 day. My mood, on the other hand, has been down for 1 year maybe. He's standing on the table. I pick him up, put him down twice. He insists on climbing the chairs. Finally, I lead him to the other corner and stand in his way. I think for sure he'll run past me, but he's turned around and now he's peeling the taped alphabets. I lower myself down to his level, sticking them back on one by one. He stops and watches. I know I have him now. Here, I give him a B to stick above the M he peeled off. You can help. He's ripping it in two. So I stick the V haphazardly back on and lean against the wall. I can look out the window from here. It stopped raining. The trees are redder than his cheeks are. I'd reasoned that he's like this today because we didn't go outside this morning, but he's always like this. He plants himself onto my lap. He loops my sweatshirt cord around my braid a few times and says, pull. No, we don't pull. No pull, he echoes. Seconds later, I pull. I undo the cords and tuck them into my shirt. Nap time looms post-lunch. His movements have slowed. His head finds its way to my chest. I watch his eyes silently roam, taking stock of all the mess he's made. When he wakes, it will be clean, ready for another tempest. I love you. I love you. He doesn't look like his father when I squint.
Oh my gosh, thank you. So much energy in this piece. My favorite diversion tactic turned on myself. In that last line, he doesn't look like his father when I squint. Thank you so much, Jover. Maida Mendel Reyes is a retired labor organizer and professor living in Michigan. She has organized and taught Latinx farm workers, African Americans fighting against environmental racism, and white Southerners opposed to racism. She dedicates this piece, her first publication, to her late partner. Maida, will you read to us, please? Hang on a second, Maida, you're muted. Okay, start over, please. Thank you.
Sorry. Help wanted, caregiver. We Caregiver Incorporated is hiring. Unlike other companies in the field, we hire only people who are caring for a dying, bedridden loved one. Our motto is, everyone is either a caregiver now, will be a caregiver, or will need a caregiver. The successful candidate must demonstrate their recognition that caregiving is often invisible and feared, like death itself. Qualifications? None. No experience necessary. No training offered. A competitive salary of $0 and 0 cents. Minimum requirements. The successful caregiver must be able to work long hours, 24 hours per day, do all the shopping, cooking, cleaning, and housekeeping, master the usage, dosages, frequency, and side effects of multiple medications, locate and purchase medical supplies and equipment, including diapers, baby wipes, hospital bed-sized sheets, nebulizer, and oxygen tank. Give injections even when loved one resists. Fight with insurance company over coverage and reimbursements. Clean up loved one before putting on new diaper, gown, and sheets, and cleaning bed. Do multiple loads of laundry. Consult on-call doctors and nurses and paramedics at any time of day or night. Say thank you to suggestions and criticism from family and friends, even if they have seen the loved one for less than an hour. If necessary, place loved one in nursing home. Find a good nursing home with an available bed. Complete lengthy application. Repeat process when loved one is denied without explanation. Apply for Medicaid. Complete lengthy application. Pay out of pocket if loved one is denied. Preferred. The caregiver should be able to comfort a loved one who is depressed and anxious. Ignore her own depression and anxiety. Cry at night out of sight of the loved one. Experience guilt over one's inevitable impatience and resentment. Never complain. We Caregive Incorporated does not discriminate based on race, color, national origin, age, disability, gender identity, sex, or sexual orientation, nor does caregiving.
Thank you, Maida. What a powerful use of the hermit crab essay, structuring it like a job application. And the list with all those demands is just tiring to listen to. Thank you so much. Liliana Mendez Soto is next, and she is a Cuban-American writer based in Northern California who seeks to cultivate compassion. She writes across genres including fiction, personal essay, and memoir. She enjoys spending time outdoors with her small pack of hounds. Liliana, would you read to us, please?
Unmute. Thank you very much. This piece is for my mother, and I lost her 22 years ago. And if I move my head, that's her portrait behind me, and that was done before I was born. This piece is called On Being a Liar to Give Care. So much of the care I gave to my mother in her last years involved not being honest, not telling her the truth, slipping meds into her warm milk because she refused them, hoping their bitter taste would go undetected, hoping they would stop her hallucinations. The dementia was a true demon. We lied to try and get an accurate diagnosis, get her to an MRI that would give us answers and guidance in her care. The dementia made her more who she'd been earlier in life, a fearful woman taught by her parents not to trust others. I had to get over the guilt of my actions. It was part of the package with her presumed diagnosis of Alzheimer's. The hallucinations she had were unpleasant and frightening, and something had to be done to try and keep her at home with my father. I would split and crush her medications, insert the powder into torn open packages of artificial sweetener, and give them to my father to put in her warm milk each morning with breakfast. The dementia had already diminished her sense of taste, smell, and taste, so this worked for a while. Eased her suffering, made her behavior manageable, helped my father to cope and soothe her as his health deteriorated under the stress. It worked until she had a bout of diarrhea from the stress of her sister's visit. After they left, she collapsed from the stress of keeping face for them, hiding her confusion, making small talk to make them think everything was okay. So afterwards, they could tell me they didn't believe she was sick, that I was lying. That then her body betrayed her and she couldn't keep down food or meds, and her world came crashing down. After this, the loss of function was so great my father could not manage her care at home, and she became afraid of bathing. She might fall and he could not lift her. And then the biggest of lies came. After a long and arduous search, we found a facility that could provide her with 24-hour care. They could help with her daily needs as she refused to accept care from family. And at the time, both my father and I had health issues that made us unable to do some of these things. But it took a lie to get her there. We were checking out a new senior center, we told her, taking a tour, going for lunch to check out the food. In secret, we packed a suitcase with her clothing, her makeup, her medications, jewelry that was not valuable, some photo albums and framed pictures. I had to write her name on the tags of her clothing and all the possessions I could. Then after lunch, we left her there, abandoned her to a place where she would be safe but despondent for days, thinking her family had forsaken her. We were not allowed to visit or call while she adjusted. It was the only thing that we could do, the best thing that we could do for her. We could not keep her safe, and leaving her with strangers was our only option, but it took a lie to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Liliana. Oh, the biggest of lies came. So effective the way the lies were woven through. The necessary lies. Thank you, Liliana. Carolyn Moore spent a promising childhood as a creative writer, only to stumble under the weight of expectations, and didn't take up creative writing again until she was in her 50s. She is a therapist in private practice in San Francisco and knows firsthand that change is always possible. Carolyn, will you read to us?
Patience or folly? Is it patience or folly to wait for someone you love, to finish parenting their children to adulthood, to finish nursing an elderly parent into a good death? The version of love I was taught says a woman should help, should sacrifice, should put her needs last. So you see why I was single for so long. The ordinary man I love cares for his widowed mother, sick with a variety of ailments, vying for the job of ending her life. He lives in the house he grew up in, walls crammed with ornate gold-framed photos of the weddings of long-dead relatives from the old country, and various generations of teenage girls crowned festa queens, wearing ornately embroidered fur-trimmed capes and tiaras. In one of them, he stands next to his sister, the bejeweled queen. He's simply her escort in a normal brown suit, his familiar bushy eyebrows consistent from youth to middle age. I visit him in that house, but I do not live there. I wait for him instead. In the beginning, I wasn't waiting. I considered him a lover among many, nothing more. Sure, I could never end up with this man so different from me. But in the slow way of things, like dirt settling between bricks over time and leveling the path, he became my foundation, the one I call for comfort, the one who notices a need and quietly fills it, the one who makes me giggle, whose arms offer safety. I admire his loyalty, his generosity, but question his self-sacrifice. Do I feel protective of him or protective of me, of the life together I imagine, not yet realized? For the past 5 years, I have been waiting. We would like to live together, share our daily lives. His children are launched, but then there's his mother, not yet launched into the next life. So I am left to wonder, am I a fool, duplicating the self-sacrifice I saw modeled growing up and vowed never to repeat? Or a woman who patiently waits for the man she loves, a man demonstrating his loyalty to the first woman in his life, or both?
What a profound question and such a dilemma. I love the line, in the slow way of things, like dirt between bricks leveling a path. So beautiful. Thank you, Carolyn. Lisa Perrin is a retired clinical social worker who lives and writes in Ann Arbor. Her work has been published in several journals, and she is a co-host of the Crazy Wisdom Poetry Circle and a member of the Poetry Society of Michigan. Lisa, will you read to us?
I don't know that Lisa's here. I think there's a Lisa, but not Lisa Perrin.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she hadn't responded. I thought maybe she came in anyway.
I also don't see Sarah. I think our next reader is Tracy.
Yeah, you're right. Sarah emailed me saying she's ill this morning. So thank you. So Tracy Stinson Salvini lives in Sacramento with her husband, 2 daughters, and a dog. She loved practicing law for many years as a civil litigator and legal counselor to government and elected officials. She's currently on family leave, caring for her husband, and is learning about surrendering to what is. Tracy, will you read to us?
Thank you. This poem is called Hello, Old Friend. Grief, grief, grief. Hello, old friend. I spent years of my childhood and adult life avoiding you, always jumping to chipper and upbeat meadows instead of walking into your dark woods. Life was pretty good that way, but also rather superficial. Then this big whammy of an illness hit us, so I braced myself and staggered into your forest. As with everything, my dear beloved friend, your friendship has been much different than I expected. Yes, you were dark, stormy, and hopeless at times, but when I let you rip and show your authentic face, you held my hand and walked me to lush grounds of joy and hope. When I give you space to rage, you repay me with timeless peace and calm. I don't know why I have been denying you and locking you away all these years. I haven't been such a good friend to you, forcing you to hide and denying your existence. But you were patient with me, forgiving me my many trespasses. To other friends and family, I can't quite explain the peace and joy I get from hanging out with you every day. I still hide you away for fear of making others uncomfortable. Maybe I'm afraid that others will try to deny you or polish over you with good intentions, sparkles, or glossiness. Maybe I want to avoid their offerings of torches and good cheer in our sacred places for darkness and weeping. So I mostly keep them for myself. I hope you don't mind. I hope you will still be my friend. I hope you will keep showing me the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. What a beautiful personification. Braced and staggered into the forest. I love the line, sacred places of darkness and weeping. Thank you, Tracy. Our next reader is Cheryl J. Shapiro. And Cheryl seeks to deepen her presence as a companion on healing journeys. She is drawn to explore and share her Judaic roots and rituals, walking with grief, whispers from nature, and the complex beauty of community. Cheryl lives in the Duwamish Coast, Salish land, also known as Seattle. Cheryl, will you read to us, please?
Thank you. This piece is dedicated to all the caregivers in our schools and to the living waters that guide and nourish me. Wading in a sea of second graders. In the sea of second graders, I wade among the tide pool swirls, sprayed with tears and laughter, pushed and pulled by their hunger and need. They devour the magazine pages, voraciously claiming images to complete their assignment, collaging a world of plants and animals. Among the waves of energy, a storm is brewing. You were given clear instructions. You chose to do something else. Should I venture into this murky tide? I approach softly, testing the waters. What happened? The boy with moon snail eyes, tentacles waving, withdrawing. I have nothing, nothing, nothing. What picture did you cut out? A man with a rifle. I resist the undertow. Would you like to find another picture? He hisses, but nods, ventures with me into the backwaters. What animal do you like? Cheetah, cheetah, cheetah. What do you like about cheetahs? They're fast, 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 like me. We slog through the slough, National Geographic, Family Circle, Ebony, Time, Zoo, Smithsonian, Condé Nast, Sunset. We both spy a patch of tan and deep black spots. No, oh no, its body is already ripped from the page. We sink in the mud. What about this bear? It's fierce. Scowling, growling, no, no, no. I strain to fill his appetite. I remember mine. A craving for tenderness. I slow my pace. I notice gentle hands holding two baby birds. Oh, those are so precious. Chicks! Baby chicks! I love chicks! I have 6 chicks at home. Would you like to choose these? Yes, yes, yes! Clutching the page, he races to his desk, cuts with disarming speed, triumphantly smears glue stick, pats them firmly into the collage nest. The tide has turned. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Again, what a beautiful metaphor. Moon snail eyes and tentacles waving to describe this young child out of control. So beautiful. I resist the undertow. Thank you, Cheryl. Our next reader is Randy Sundell. She's a modern love New York Times published author. Her short stories appear in the anthologies True Stories, volumes 5 and 6. Drawing on her acting and singing background, Randy's upcoming memoir, Role of a Lifetime, pulls back the curtain on caregiving and grief. Randy, will you read to us, please?
What I did for love. You could call me an optimistic worrier. It's in my DNA. I hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. The worst has a name, dementia. Having seen it up close with loved ones, I know how it haunts and humbles. My mom endured Alzheimer's while my father's mental confusion accompanied Parkinson's disease. What the future holds for me is uncertain, but while lucid, I am determined to take control of my life. Weeks after Mom's death at 93, I summoned my adult son, my only child, to my home. I invited him to sit with me in my cream-colored office. There was something I had to get off my chest. We need to talk, Greg. My serious tone cued his body to stiffen. I could see this was not a conversation he wanted to have. Should I succumb to dementia? Greg's complexion turned as pale as the surrounding walls. These are my wishes. Considering how crushing my experience was caring for my parents, I wanted to spare my son what heartache I could. I told him I trusted him, knew he loved me, and would always want what was best for me. And what I felt was best for me was to know he was living his life as unburdened as possible. If the day comes when I no longer know you, do not feel obligated to visit me constantly. I know firsthand how unbearable that pain is. Mom, my son inserted, attempting to shut down our talk. Hear me out, please. Should that time come, it would be enough for me to be cared for by any kind stranger who would see to my needs, keep me clean, and maintain my appearance. Your mom is vain, you know. I winked. Greg stifled a grin. A lightness descended, easing the heaviness of the subject matter. To make my statement more official, I began speaking in broken legal jargon, mimicking the fast-talking spokesperson at the end of a TV prescription drug commercial. Should I ever convey a different desire when mentally compromised, this conversation we're having today when I am of sound mind is the true expression of my wishes. It negates any future request I may voice when I am not competent to make those decisions. Agreed? Agreed, mumbled my son, skyrocketing from his chair and bolting out the door away from his sane mother, talking about losing her mind.
What a great reading. Thank you, Randy. I love While I'm Lucid, I Am Determined. And hear me out, please. The voice in this piece is so strong. Thank you, Randy. Linda Tate is the author of Power in the Blood, a Family Narrative. She is currently working on a new memoir, I Found Love, and It Did Not Leave Me, the transformative love story of her caregiving journey with her late husband, Jim Rebman. Linda, will you read to us, please?
I'm reading my essay, A Cup of Water. I was at my husband Jim's hospital bed throughout those last few days. He needed me at his side even more because he was blind. Jim frequently wanted water, but this provoked a tussle between us every time. He would ask for the cup of water and I'd hold it near him, guide the straw to his mouth. He would put his hand on mine and try to take control. He wanted to hold the cup himself, manage the straw. But his moves were herky and jerky. He couldn't see the cup or the straw, and I knew that if he managed the cup, water would spill all over him. Back and forth we went every time. Such a seemingly little detail, but it spoke volumes. Jim still wanted to be in charge of his life. He still wanted agency. I would try to explain why I needed to hold the cup, but as soon as I'd say, Jim, let me hold the cup. We don't want water to spill on you. He'd jerk the cup even harder, letting me know quite firmly that he could still get himself a drink of water. Our friend Dale was also there one day. She saw our struggle and stepped in. The next time Jim asked for water, she picked up the cup and said, Jim, it's Dale. I'm going to hold the straw to your mouth. That soothed him, and he let her control the cup of water. But nothing doing with me. It reminded me of how we walked together, Jim holding on to my right arm with his left hand, his right hand using his white cane to look for obstacles. We could never find a gait that suited both of us. I'd slow down, thinking that he wasn't keeping up and that I needed to go slower. He'd push my arm a little to indicate that he wanted to go faster. Back and forth we went, just as herky and jerky in our walking as we were now with the cup of water. Such is the dance between couples. Who's in charge? Who leads? Who follows? I wanted to protect him, keep him safe, so I wanted to control that cup so that water wouldn't spill all over him. Jim still wanted to lead when it came to looking after his own needs. He wanted to take a drink of water himself. Just a cup of water, but it tells the tale.
No, thank you, Linda. Such a beautiful description of a small event. I loved using his white cane to look for obstacles. We could not find a gait that suited both of us. Thank you, Linda. Our next reader is Audrey Williams. Audrey is a Black American Burmese poet published in Fungi Magazine, Flash Fiction Online, Space and Time Magazine, Lightspeed Magazine, and Conjuring Worlds. She holds an MFA from California College of the Arts and lives in Northern California with her husband and is the primary caregiver of her 87-year-old mother. Audrey, will you read to us?
Thank you. I'll be reading my poem, Grace. One tradition we still uphold daily when we eat as a family is to bow our heads, hold our hands, and say grace, no matter if it's Thanksgiving dinner or tuna salad sandwiches. My mother refuses to eat tuna salad anymore, though. Not that she doesn't like it. She taught me how to make it. There was a year in high school that tuna salad in a pita pocket was all I ever wanted to eat. But when Daddy was taking the chemo and radiation, his throat was so sore, it hurt him to swallow. So she made his meals softer and softer. Tuna salad, no bread, was the last meal she served him at home. The last meal he took without the help of a tube. I would wonder what my mother's last meal will be, but I can't pretend to know, and I don't know that it matters. What I do know is that when that day comes, I will be proud to have done my best to preserve her dignity, to serve her needs to the best of my ability. And as always, there will be grace. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. I loved the year in high school where I only ate tuna salad and pita, and then the repetition of the last meal that was ever served by the mother to the father. Thank you, Audrey. Susan Wingert is a sociologist, writer, and editor from Winnipeg and holds a doctorate in sociology. She is the program steward for the Allen Class Program in Health and Humanities at the University of Manitoba. She's an AWA facilitator and a member of the Caregiver Project. Her forthcoming short fiction will appear in Dark Winter Literary Magazine. Susan, will you read to us?
Remembrances. It will be hard to let go
of the places I expect you to be, waiting with the steadfastness of a golden retriever with a sloppy ball. In the tender space where I was made and given hope to find myself, obliterate it all and return once more to your sweet harbor. In shortbread bound with butter, never margarine, that whisper I love you from inside metal tins that once homed cookies of inferior pedigree. In the long silences that punctuate our conversations, because you were a better listener than talker, and I did not see time's fleeting. In the tail of the pileated woodpecker and its rollicking crest that reminds me to be brave, as you so quietly were in the gloaming of life. In my imperfections, because they came from you by way of millennia, passed on, a hot potato of accumulations. In the sweet delusion that you were a favorite movie that could be played as needed ad infinitum, it will be hard to let go of the places I expect you to be. Pangs of places that remember, cradle a love that searches.
Susan, thank you. I loved of the places I expect you, and the rollicking crest of the pileated woodpecker that reminds me to be brave. Such beautiful lines. Thank you, Susan. So this was just a beautiful reading. Was wonderful spending time with you today. Let me think. Are there announcements we need to make, Sue or Katie, that I need to wrap up with?
I'll put a link to buy the book in the chat.
Thank you.
Last time I spontaneously thought there are probably people who came to this via Submittable, but actually haven't attended a caregiver workshop. And would they be okay to be added to the list to be notified about the workshops? And of course, they can just delete themselves from the list. They can unsubscribe if they don't want to, but are people okay to be notified about upcoming workshops?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Great.
We also have ongoing workshops for caregivers. We've been running series of 4 workshops, but this month we're just doing, we finished our last series on the 4th of December, but now we're doing some standalones. And so you can visit our website to look for those if you're interested in attending some workshops. And again, we offer prompts that can be used about caregiving topics, but they do not have to be, because it's just an affinity group, but writing is open to all genres. Anything else from Katie or Sue?
I just saw the question in the chat. Katie will be posting the link to this recording. Sorry for speaking for you, Katie, but just answering.
No, thank you for speaking for me. I was working on getting the link to the caregiver workshops in the chat as well.
Oh, thank you so much.
But yes, the recording will be up on YouTube. I will share it after.
So the book is available on Amazon, and we thank you so much for participating, whether as a reader or as a listener today. It really, I love listening to these pieces. They're so beautifully written. And again, I love the fact that AWA has been allowed to get some of these voices, these particular silenced, marginalized voices, people who are doing such profound work. I've seen it up close and personal. And so I thank you all for the work that you've done and for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the gorgeous moderation, Carla.
Oh, thank you, Sue. Yeah, beautiful reading.
Thank you, everybody. It was a privilege to hear these in your own voices, your own words.
Thank you all.
Nobody wants to leave.
It's always the way, that is how it is, isn't it?
I can close the room for us all, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Everybody.